Old Pine Productions presents.
And from revolutions in military technology to the cure for cancer, here are 10 inventions they're hiding from us. Number 10. The Volkswagen Lupo. Now, while you no doubt know of the Volkswagen model, it's very unlikely that you know about the Lupo. This car was made from 1999 to 2005 and had such a good fuel efficiency that it could go 99 miles per gallon. And yes, there have been numerous cars that have made that claim, or ones like it, but the Lupo was different, very different. It actually proved it. In fact, a couple of these cars drove around the world without using as much fuel as others. So you may be wondering, how did this car not get bought and sold in the United States? Well, in short, it was law and greed. There are laws in the US that prohibit massive importing of cars, likely because they want people to buy American models, which is ironic because the Lupo had an engine that was made in America. Still, the US didn't want the import of these clearly more fuel-efficient cars because they were made in Germany and didn't like the look. They did give the car maker the option to bring it if they did some changes, but because of the cost of the changes, it just wasn't worth it. So the car barely made it to the US. It all makes you wonder, if this 99 mile per gallon car was out there, what other kinds of super fuel efficient cars are they not allowing us to see? Number 9. Freer wireless communication. In 2003, a man by the name of Robert Gold had an idea. He realized there was a way to make wireless communication in such a way that nobody could interfere with it or hack it. Wi-Fi was technically invented and released in the 90s, but it was nowhere near what it is now. Gold's invention would have likely brought it to where we are now in the 2000s without a whole lot of struggle. However, after he filed for a patent, the government stepped in and gave him the secrecy order. This order is actually a real thing and basically makes it so that the government owns your patent, not for personal use, but to make sure that it doesn't get used at all. While ideas are free, some inventions could be used against certain governments both from within and without. And even Gold would admit that in the wrong hands, his wireless communication network could be used maliciously. That being said, he did fight the secrecy order and eventually got it lifted, but it took too long, and as such, he has an invention that just isn't needed anymore. Number 8. Hemp products. Now, you may be surprised to learn that up until World War I, hemp was actually used in numerous objects all over the United States. In fact, people were encouraged to plant it in groves so they could make various products like rope and carpets and even clothing. Hemp has been used by many cultures around the world for centuries, and the funny thing is, it's actually closely related to marijuana, and only through certain techniques does it become more usable. So, around World War I, a tax was placed on it, and a request was issued to ensure that it wasn't used recreationally. Plus, when the use of processing synthetic fibers came around, hemp was seen as irrelevant, even though it was still a viable product. Despite its decline, it's still made today, but it's not even close to where it was in the earliest days of the United States. Number 7. The Cloudbuster. But first, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on my latest videos. While it may seem very sci-fi, the ability to control the weather is something that many powerful governments have been looking into for a long time. One man by the name of Wilhelm Reich actually invented a device that could control the weather in certain ways, called the Cloudbuster. What's even more amazing about the device is that it was made in the 1950s. Reich had the device to not actually bust clouds, but rather to summon them. He could call clouds over whenever he wanted, and wanted to make a device that could actually help end droughts and forest fires. Now, it wasn't just a simple idea, he actually got it to work. Testing it on an area that wasn't scheduled for rain, he then got clouds to form and a 1/4 inch of rain actually fell. So what happened, and why isn't it all over the world? Well, that's because Reich invented some other things, including medical devices, which were apparently breaking FDA regulations, so he was then arrested and put into jail. Furthermore, the government had his research destroyed, including his work on the Cloudbuster. Or if you're a conspiracy theorist, maybe they stole it. Though we do have some attempts at weather control today, it's nothing like the Cloudbuster was, as far as we know. Number 6, package tracking. Now, when you order a package on Amazon or really anywhere else, you can mail a package at the post office and get package tracking. But what if I told you that this invention was originally patented in 1969? It's true, and the secrecy order would strike again, making it so that its inventor, James Constant, couldn't use his invention. Now, to be fair, it wasn't anything like what we have today, as computers weren't even close to how they are now, but instead, his way would use radar to track packages, shipping containers, and more. The order would be lifted by 1971, which you would think would allow him to fulfill his intentions. However, he did lose a lot of money due to his invention being banned by the order. And given how technology had advanced, I'd say he never got the chance to truly make it work. Number 5, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. The TENS unit was a medical device that used electrical stimulation in order to cure people of aches and pains. Now, you may recognize the name and see people using similar devices today. The problem here, though, is that the they, in this case, being Johnson & Johnson, actually tried to suppress it, and were successful at doing so for a while. In 1975, the company StemTech made their patent and device, and eventually they were brought into Johnson & Johnson, who then claimed to see its potential. But then apparently Johnson & Johnson made some bad business decisions, all in order to ensure that the TENS unit didn't sell. But how come? Well, it's simple. That's because Johnson & Johnson also owned Tylenol, which is a rival of sorts to the TENS. And so StemTech took them to court and actually won, but weren't paid the damages that the court ordered because of a legal technicality. Still, though, the TENS was allowed to go back to the market, and the world now knew what Johnson & Johnson had done, just so people would buy more of their product than buy one of a single product. Number 4, the water-powered car. Stan Mayer would have been one of the most brilliant minds in the world because he invented a working car that could run off of water. Now, just think about the potential for that. A car running off of water? The catch here, though, is that while he claimed it worked, there were a lot of people in the government and the automotive industry who called him a fraud. While his patents are out there for everyone to see, no one is using them at all. What's more, he also died of a brain hemorrhage, which some claim was an assassination attempt, so that his work would die with him. Number 3, Nikola Tesla's inventions. They say that history is written by the winners, which is why the story of Nikola Tesla is so sad, because a feud with Thomas Edison would lead him to being discredited and labeled as a crackpot genius, when all he was trying to do was make electrical energy free for everyone. Nikola Tesla was a genius, there's no doubt about that. He made numerous inventions that would push free energy forward, including the legendary Tesla coil. And a funding issue would be the only reason that he didn't make wireless components first. Then, after his death, the FBI actually came in and took all the patents and inventions that he made and locked them away. And even though some of them are available to see these days, they're redacted heavily. Edison also played a role in Tesla's inventions being suppressed, not the least of which was because he would make people pay for his electricity, which got him the backing of the government. Number 2, cold fusion. Now, depending on who you believe, cold fusion is either an impossible feat of engineering or the source of one of the biggest suppression acts in the history of the world. It's a way of producing energy with much less energy going into the process. Also, unlike nuclear power, there's no fear of radiation. In 1989, two men in a garage claimed to have created cold fusion, and when they showed it to their peers, well, that's when everything went wrong. Nobody could believe that cold fusion was made in a garage and not some fancy laboratory. As such, the men were threatened, and they fled for their lives. Then the hot fusion supporters actually used their own money to make sure that the funding for cold fusion dried up. And it did. Big business won over clean energy for all once again. And number 1, the cure for cancer. Of all the medical issues in the world, cancer is perhaps the one that's gotten the most attention, the most research, and the most people studying it, all in order to find a cure for at least one form, if not all of them. So I'm curious to hear your response when you hear that a cure for cancer may actually be out there in some form, because the truth is the United States won't allow it because one of the cure's ingredients is marijuana. No, I'm not pulling your leg, it's true. For a man in 2001 from Nova Scotia named Rick Simpson had a cancerous growth on his hand, which he cured in just a matter of a few days. And what was his treatment? Well, he used oils on his hand, ones that were made from marijuana. And if that wasn't enough, there are recorded cases of people in Spain having brain tumors go away because of products made out of marijuana. Now, with all the changes in legislation, that may be changing soon. What's more, if this was a cure for cancer, it could easily be grown by people and would cause millions of dollars of profit loss for medical companies and the government. Not to mention, if this was an end-all be-all cure, numerous foundations for cancer research would shut down because a cure would finally be found. What it all boils down to, they don't want you to have a cure because they make money off of your misery. And by 1954, it was noted in the Senate that the AMA and the FDA were suppressing other cures because it would affect pharmaceutical companies.
If you like what you just saw, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to notify when I upload new videos, and we'll see you later.